My name is Eleanor Hastings. I'm 28 years old, and last Thanksgiving my family taught me exactly who they are. When my boyfriend said he was a plumber, my father looked him in the eye and said, "A plumber? You just unclogged toilets." Then he seated him at the far end of the table, between my 6-year-old nephew and the centerpiece. For 3 hours, they asked everyone else about their careers: the pilot, the lawyer, the doctor. They asked Sully nothing. When he tried to help fix the heating system that was making noise, my dad cut him off. "We hire professionals for that." They didn't know that the call Sully took during dessert would change everything. 2 weeks later, when he came back with an envelope, my father's face went white. What happened next didn't just flip the table, it flipped their entire understanding of what success actually looks like. I met James Sullivan on a Saturday afternoon in April 2025 at a friend's backyard barbecue in Bridgeport. The host's grill had broken mid-cookout, and while everyone else stood around complaining, Sully quietly grabbed a wrench from his truck and fixed it in under 10 minutes. He didn't announce it, didn't wait for applause, just wiped his hands on a rag and went back to his beer. I walked up to him by the cooler. "You always carry tools to parties?" He smiled. Not a big grin, just a small, genuine thing. "Only when I want to impress someone." That was 11 months ago. We'd been dating ever since. And in those 11 months, I'd learned that Sully was the kind of man who showed up when he said he would, who remembered the small things, who asked about my work at Fairfield Community Fund, a nonprofit with a $340,000 annual budget that barely kept the lights on, and actually listened to my answers. He told me early on that he worked in plumbing. I'd been to his office once, back in June. It was a small building in Bridgeport with 3 blue trucks parked outside and a simple sign: Sullivan Mechanical Solutions. Clean, organized, nothing flashy. When I asked what exactly he did, he'd shrugged and said, "Pipes, systems, commercial work mostly. Keep it running, keep it safe." I didn't push. Sully was private about the details, and I respected that. But in early November, when my mother called to invite him to Thanksgiving, I got nervous. "Eleanor, we're doing Thanksgiving at 4 p.m., she said, her voice bright and insistent. 14 people. Bring James, casual attire." I hesitated. "Mom, you know how Dad can be." "Oh, honey, your father just wants to meet him. It'll be fine." It would not be fine. My family had a way of measuring people. My older brother Andrew had married Jessica, a lawyer at a mid-sized firm. My younger brother Nathan was dating a medical student. And me? I was bringing a plumber. When I told Sully about the invitation, he just nodded. "I want to meet them." "They can be judgmental," I warned. He smiled that same small smile. "I've been judged before, Ellie. I'll survive." What I didn't know then was that Sully wasn't worried about surviving. He was testing them. And on November 28th, 2025, as we drove the 22 minutes from Bridgeport to my parents' house in Fairfield, Connecticut, he said something I wouldn't understand until much later. 2 weeks. I glanced over at him. 2 weeks what? He adjusted his grip on the steering wheel of his 2019 Ford F-150. Blue paint, slightly faded, work boots in the back. "You'll see." We pulled up behind my brother's Tesla Model 3. The Hastings family home was a colonial-style 4-bedroom, built in 1987, estimated value around $890,000. My father was proud of that house, proud of the neighborhood, proud of what it represented. I didn't understand yet what it actually represented. My mother answered the door at 3:47 p.m. Her eyes did a quick scan of Sully: jeans, a clean button-down shirt, work boots. They were clean, polished even, but they were still work boots. Not loafers, not Oxfords. "James!" She pulled him into a hug that lasted exactly 1 second too short. "So glad you could make it. Come in, come in." Her gaze dropped. "You can leave your boots by the door if you'd like." Sully smiled. "Sure thing, Mrs. Hastings." The foyer was exactly as I remembered, family photos lining the walls. Andrew in his pilot's uniform, Nathan in his white coat from his medical school ceremony, my college graduation portrait, achievements on display, carefully curated. My father appeared from the living room, a glass of scotch in his hand. Macallan 12. He extended his other hand to Sully. Lawrence Hastings, Ellie's told us some about you. Sully shook his hand firmly. James Sullivan, it's good to finally meet you, sir. Lawrence is fine. My father's smile didn't reach his eyes. Come on in, everyone's here. The living room held 14 people in various stages of conversation. My grandmother Vivian, 81, sharp as ever, sat in the wingback chair near the window. Uncle Philip and Aunt Carol stood by the fireplace. My cousin's kids ran circles around the coffee table. And there, near the bar cart, stood George Caldwell, the architect my father had worked with for years, and Dr. Brian Porter, my Aunt Diana's husband, who ran his own general practice. My father made introductions with the precision of a man who valued hierarchy. This is George Caldwell, the architect behind our Riverside project. George shook Sully's hand. Good to meet you. Dr. Brian Porter. Runs his own practice over in Westport. Brian nodded. Call me Brian. Then my father gestured vaguely toward Sully. And this is James, Eleanor's friend. Not boyfriend. Friend. Sully's expression didn't change, but I felt my chest tighten. Uncle Philip, oblivious and friendly as always, clapped Sully on the shoulder. So, James, what do you do? Sully smiled. I'm a plumber. Fix pipes, install systems, mostly commercial work. The room got quieter, just slightly, just enough. George chuckled, a sound meant to fill the awkward space. Honest work. Bet you see some interesting situations. Every job has its moments, Sully said evenly. My father took a sip of his scotch. Well, someone's got to do it, right? The forced laugh that followed made my skin crawl. At 4:12 p.m., my mother called everyone to the dining room. The table was set for 14. Long, polished oak. My father took his seat at the head. My mother at the opposite end. Grandmother Vivian to my father's right. George and Brian to his left. Then came Andrew and Jessica, Nathan, Uncle Philip and Aunt Carol, Aunt Diana. And at the far end of the table, squeezed between my 6-year-old nephew Michael and a massive centerpiece of fall flowers, sat Sully. I was placed 8 chairs away from him, between Nathan and Aunt Carol. My mother smiled brightly. James, you're right here. Help keep an eye on little Michael, would you? Sully nodded. Of course. Separate tables would have been more honest. The first course was salad. My father started the conversation the way he always did, by highlighting achievement. Andrew, tell everyone about the captain track promotion. My brother straightened in his seat. Well, it's not official yet, but I'm on the accelerated path. Youngest in my regional class. That's incredible, George said. Piloting for which airline? Regional carrier right now, but the goal is to move up to a major in the next 2 years. 5 minutes of discussion followed. Routes, hours, training protocols, everyone nodding, engaged, impressed. Then Jessica talked about a recent real estate case she'd won. Another 5 minutes. Nathan discussed his surgery rotation at Yale New Haven, the precision of laparoscopic procedures, the mentorship he was receiving. The conversation rolled around the table like a well-rehearsed performance. Each person got their moment, each achievement acknowledged and celebrated. When the flow reached Sully's end, my father glanced past him as if he were part of the centerpiece. So, who's ready for the Patriots game on Sunday? Sully said nothing, just ate his salad quietly, listening. He was invisible by design. During the turkey course, the radiator near the dining room started making a noise. A high-pitched hiss, the kind that signals air trapped in the lines. Sully glanced over at it. I saw his eyes narrow slightly, the way they did when he was diagnosing a problem. He set down his fork. Mr. Hastings, sounds like you might have air trapped in there. Easy fix. You just need to bleed the radiators. My father's face tightened. I've got a guy for that. George laughed. Lawrence runs a tight ship. Leave the troubleshooting to the pros, right? A few people chuckled. Sully nodded once and went back to his plate. But I saw it, just for a second. His jaw tightened. At 5:18 p.m., Sully's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and declined the call. I was close enough to see the caller ID. David C. He typed a quick text and put the phone away. My father noticed. Emergency toilet backup? A few people laughed. Sully stayed calm. Just a client, it can wait. They always call at the worst times, don't they? My father said, shaking his head in mock sympathy. At 6:02 p.m., the phone buzzed again. Same caller. Sully declined again. Nobody asked who David was. They'd already assumed. Dessert was pumpkin pie. George brought up a topic my father had been chasing for months. Lawrence, any update on that Stamford project? I heard Grandview's finally moving forward. My father sighed, the kind of sigh that signaled frustration masked as patience. Still waiting. They want some specialized mechanical contractor. Hard to find good partners these days. George nodded. Mechanical's always the bottleneck. You need someone who knows commercial HVAC inside and out. Exactly, my father said. And they don't grow on trees. Sully's eyes flicked up briefly, then back to his pie. He took a slow breath. I didn't understand why he smiled into his coffee. By 6:30 p.m., the conversation had shifted back to family accomplishments. My mother was beaming. Andrew just made captain track, youngest in his class. Nathan's doing his surgery rotation at Yale. We're so proud. Grandmother Vivian, sitting to my father's right, added, The boys really have made something of themselves. She looked at me, paused, then glanced toward Sully. Educated, ambitious, professional. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. We all heard it. Sully placed his fork down neatly. He didn't flinch. At 6:45 p.m., the men moved to the living room. My father poured scotch for George, Brian, and Andrew. Then he reached for the bottle, saw Sully standing there, and paused. James, you want a beer instead? I know some guys prefer. Sully's voice was even. Scotch is fine, thank you. My father poured, his movements stiff. Here you go, Macallan 12. Not sure if you're familiar. I am, thanks. Sully took one sip, then he held the glass for the rest of the evening, never drinking more, staying sharp. He was being tolerated, not welcomed. At 7:10 p.m., Uncle Brian mentioned that his clinic needed a new water heater. Hey James, you got a card? I'll give you a call next week. Sully reached into his wallet and handed over a simple white card with blue text. Brian glanced at it, nodded, and slipped it into his pocket without reading it. Nobody else asked for one. That card said everything they needed to know. Nobody looked. Have you ever been judged for your job before you even got a chance to speak? Drop a comment. I'd love to hear your story. At 9:47 p.m., most of the guests had left. Only family remained. My father pulled me aside into his home office. My mother followed. The door clicked shut behind us. Ellie, honey. My father's voice was gentle, but firm. Is this serious? Yes, Dad. Very. He exhaled slowly, set his scotch glass down on the desk. Behind him, framed on the wall, was a photo of him shaking hands with a Connecticut state senator. Look, I'm not saying he's a bad guy, but you're 28. Andrew married a lawyer. Nathan's dating a medical student. Don't you want someone on your level? I felt my pulse quicken. What level, Dad? My mother stepped in, her voice softer. We just want you to be secure, sweetie. Plumbers are fine, but think long-term, retirement, kids' college. He's a good man, Mom. My father's voice sharpened. Good doesn't pay for private school, Ellie. I stared at him. Is that what matters to you? How much he makes? It's not about money. He straightened his tie, a gesture I recognized from childhood arguments. It's about potential. Potential. Code for not good enough. The office clock read 9:52 p.m. I turned and walked out. At 10:15 p.m., Sully and I drove south on Route 1. The roads were quiet. For the first 5 minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, I broke. "I'm so sorry." Sully reached over and squeezed my hand. "Don't be. They showed me exactly who they are. They were horrible. They were honest." His voice was calm, too calm. 2 more weeks. I turned to look at him. "What happens in 2 weeks?" He kept his eyes on the road. That same small smile. "You'll see." I wanted to press, but something in his tone stopped me. It wasn't anger, it wasn't hurt, it was certainty. Back at my apartment in Bridgeport, a one-bedroom I rented for $1,650 a month, I lay awake that night replaying the dinner. Sully had never defended himself, never corrected them, never mentioned his company's size, his clients, his degree. He'd let them judge him. And I realized something that made my chest ache. This wasn't about them hurting him. It was about what they'd revealed about themselves. My digital clock blinked 11:47 p.m. I'd brought home a good man, and my family had treated him like help. The question I couldn't answer was, why had Sully let them? The first week of December passed quietly. Sully worked his normal schedule. We had dinner on Wednesday at our usual diner. He ordered meatloaf, same as always. We saw a movie on Friday. He was affectionate, present, calm. He didn't mention Thanksgiving once. My mother called on December 3rd. "Just checking in, honey. Have you thought about what we discussed?" "I'm not breaking up with him, Mom." A pause. "We didn't ask you to break up with him. We just want you to think about your future." I didn't respond. She filled the silence with small talk and hung up. On December 10th, I stopped by Sully's office to drop off lunch. The building was small but well maintained. 3 trucks in the lot. Through the window of his office, I could see him on the phone. I walked in just as he was wrapping up. "David, I understand. Yes, the timeline works. I'll confirm by the 20th. He hung up and smiled when he saw me. "Hey, you. Client?" I asked, setting down the takeout bag. "Yeah, big one." I hesitated. "The one who called on Thanksgiving?" "The same." His office was neat, dual monitors on his desk, blueprints pinned to the wall, and there, on the shelf behind him, a framed photo of an older man in work clothes, standing in front of a truck. The resemblance was striking. "Your dad?" I asked. Sully glanced back. "Yeah, Joseph Sullivan, best plumber in Bridgeport." His voice softened. "He died in 2016. Heart attack. 58 years old." "I'm sorry." "Me too." He looked back at me. "He taught me everything. How to work, how to treat people, how to build something that lasts." I didn't push further, but I felt something building. A storm I couldn't see yet. On December 12th, my mother called again. This time she sounded tired. "Your father's been so stressed about that Grandview contract. He's called them 6 times this week. They keep saying they'll get back to him." I filed that away. Grandview, the same company George had mentioned at Thanksgiving. "Why does he want it so badly?" I asked. "It's a big project. Stamford office complex, 6 buildings. If he gets the subcontracting work, it could bring in over $500,000 over 3 years. He really needs this, Ellie." $500,000. My father's company, Hastings Property Services, did about $3.2 million a year in revenue. This contract would be a significant boost. "I hope he gets it," I said carefully. "Me too. He's been working so hard." On December 15th, Sully and I had brunch at Blue Door Bistro in Fairfield. He ordered eggs Benedict and asked, casually, "Your dad still chasing that Stamford project?" I looked up, surprised. "Yeah. How do you know about Grandview?" He sipped his coffee. "I've worked with them before." "Worked with them? Like as a contractor?" "Something like that." He didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. But later, as we walked to the car, I replayed his phrasing. Worked with them, not for them. With. On December 20th, Sully sent me a text. Can you ask your parents if I can take them to lunch on the 24th? I want to clear the air. I stared at the message. Sully didn't apologize for things he hadn't done. I forwarded the message to my mother. She replied an hour later. Your father says fine, noon, our place. Then she forwarded me a text from my father. If he wants to apologize for being awkward, fine. 30 minutes max. My stomach flipped. Sully wasn't going to apologize. I knew that much. So what was he planning? December 23rd, 2025, 10:14 a.m. My father sat at his desk in the small office building that housed Hastings Property Services. The office was cluttered, blueprints, vendor contracts, a cold cup of coffee. His licensing certificates hung on the wall behind him, polished and proud. He clicked open his email. Subject: R.E. Stamford Office Complex. Subcontractor Coordination from David Chen, VP of Operations, Grandview Commercial Group. His heart skipped. He'd been waiting for this email for 6 months. He read, Dear Mr. Hastings, thank you for your continued interest in the Stamford project. We're moving forward with final vendor selection and appreciate your patience during this process. However, all subcontractors for this project will need coordination approval from our primary mechanical contractor to ensure seamless integration across systems. Please contact them directly to discuss scope alignment and timeline compatibility. Primary mechanical contractor, Sullivan. Mechanical Solutions, LLC. Contact James Sullivan. Office 203-555-0147. We look forward to your continued interest. Best regards, David Chen, VP of Operations, Grandview Commercial Group. My father read the name 3 times. Sullivan. James Sullivan. No, it couldn't be. His hand shook slightly as he moved the mouse. He opened a new browser tab. Google, Sullivan Mechanical Solutions, Connecticut. The first result loaded. A clean, professional website. Header photo. A man in a hard hat at a construction site, shaking hands with someone in a suit. The man was Sully. Sullivan Mechanical Solutions, LLC Commercial H, VAC Design. Plumbing Systems. Energy Consulting, serving the tri-state area since 2016. My father clicked on the About page. James Sullivan, P.E., founder and owner, B.S. in Mechanical Engineering, University of Connecticut, licensed professional engineer. Certified LEED Green Associate, 15 employees. Clients include Grandview Commercial Group, Yale New Haven Hospital, Stamford Public Schools. The room tilted. At 10:28 a.m., my father called me. I was at my desk at work. My coworker glanced over as my phone rang. Ellie. His voice was tight, controlled. Does James know David Chen? I blinked. Who? David Chen. From Grandview. I don't know. Why? Silence. 5 full seconds. What exactly does James do? His voice was sharper now. And don't say plumber. He owns Sullivan Mechanical Solutions, I said slowly. I told you that. You said he worked in plumbing. He does work in plumbing, Dad. He owns a plumbing and mechanical company. He's a licensed engineer. He has 15 employees. I've told you this. I hadn't, not explicitly, but I'd assumed he'd asked. Assumed he'd cared enough to know. He's coming here tomorrow, isn't he? My father's voice was barely above a whisper. Yes. Jesus Christ, he hung up. December 24th, 2025, 12:28 p.m. I arrived at my parents' house early. My mother was pacing in the kitchen. My father sat at the dining table, staring at a printout of Sully's company website. At exactly 12:30 p.m., the doorbell rang. My father answered. Sully stood on the porch, wearing the same button-down shirt and jeans from Thanksgiving. In his hand was a worn brown leather folder. They shook hands. Awkward. Stiff. James, thanks for coming. Thanks for having me, Mr. Hastings. We moved to the living room. 4 of us. My father, my mother, Sully, and me. The coffee table sat between us like a no man's land. Sully set the folder on the table. He didn't open it yet. I want to start by saying I'm not here to make anyone feel bad, Sully began. His voice was calm, measured. But I do want to clear something up. My father nodded stiffly. At Thanksgiving, you asked what I do. I said I'm a plumber, that's true. He paused. I fix pipes, I install systems. I've been doing it since I was 16 years old. My father taught me. His voice softened. Joseph Sullivan. He was a plumber, a good one. He built a small company in Bridgeport. 3 employees, about $380,000 a year in revenue. Honest work, honest pay. My mother leaned forward slightly. In 2016, my dad had a heart attack. He was 58, I was 24, and I'd just graduated from UConn with a degree in mechanical engineering. It took me 6 years because I worked full-time as an apprentice plumber while I studied. Sully's hands were folded, his posture relaxed, but his eyes were steady. When my dad died, I had a choice. I could sell his company and take a corporate job, or I could keep it, honor what he built. You kept it, my father said quietly. I kept it. Sully nodded. And I grew it. I added HVAC design services, hired engineers, started targeting commercial projects, schools, hospitals, office buildings. We do quality work. Our clients trust us. He opened the folder and slid a glossy brochure across the table. My mother picked it up. Her eyes widened. The brochure listed 15 employees, annual revenue, $4.8 million, certifications, professional engineer, PE, LEED, Green Associate, client list, Grandview Commercial Group, Yale New Haven Hospital, Stanford Public Schools, Connecticut State Buildings Authority. We're not huge, Sully said, but we're good. My father stared at the brochure. He didn't speak. Sully slid another document across the table. A letter on Grandview letterhead, dated December 18th, 2025. Letter of intent, Stamford Office Complex. Mechanical Systems Contract. Total value, $1.8 million. 3-year timeline. Primary contractor, Sullivan Mechanical Solutions, LLC. My father picked it up, read it once, then again. The silence stretched. I counted. 68 seconds. Finally, my father looked up. Why didn't you say anything? Sully's voice was soft, not cruel, but firm. You didn't ask. We let you think. You let yourselves think, Sully corrected. Mr. Hastings, I told you I'm a plumber. That's the truth. But you heard plumber and stopped listening. You didn't ask about my company, my education, my goals. You saw the job title and made your decision. My father's face went red, not from anger, from shame. My mother started crying, quietly. I've been underestimated before, Sully continued. Twice, I dated women who left when they found out I owned a plumbing company. Not a tech startup, not a finance firm. Plumbing. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. So when Ellie invited me to Thanksgiving, I wanted to see something. You were testing us, my father said. I was. Sully didn't deny it. I wanted to see if you'd treat a plumber with respect, basic human decency. You didn't. I squeezed Sully's hand. I was crying too. But not from sadness, from pride. I don't need you to be impressed by what I own, Sully said. But I needed you to be decent to who I am, and you weren't. My mother spoke first, her voice breaking. James, I'm so sorry. We were horrible. I was horrible. My father took longer. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything right now. But my father continued, his voice cracking. I judged you, completely, and I was wrong. Yes, Sully said simply. You were. The honesty was brutal, but necessary. The worst part, Sully said, his voice still calm, wasn't how you treated me. It was what you taught Ellie. He looked at me, then back at my father. You told her she was settling. You told her good men don't pay for private school. You measured me by my tax bracket. You did it in front of your entire family. He paused. And afterward, she apologized to me. For you. That's not okay. My tears fell freely now. Relief. Validation. My father stood up. For a moment I thought he'd walk out, but he sat back down, put his head in his hands. You're right. All of it. His voice was muffled. I was protecting my ego. I wanted Ellie to marry up, and I didn't see that she already had. He looked at me. I'm sorry, honey, I'm so sorry. It was the first genuine apology I'd heard from him in years. No defenses, no qualifications. Sully stood, picked up his folder. Wait, my father said. Please. Sully stopped. What's a time you saw someone completely underestimate the wrong person? I want to hear what happened. There's something else, my father said, his voice unsteady. The Grandview contract. Sully sat back down. David Chen asked if I'd recommend subcontractors for the Stamford project, Sully said evenly. I haven't answered yet. My father went still. Your company does good work, Sully continued. I've looked into it. Solid reputation, fair pricing. You've been in business for 18 years. He paused. But I don't know if I can recommend you. Because of Thanksgiving. Because I don't know if you've learned anything. The weight of those words filled the room. My father's hands pressed flat against the table, steadying himself. The Grandview project was worth over $500,000 to his company. 3 years of steady work. The biggest opportunity he'd had in years. The Grandview project is 6 buildings, Sully explained. My company handles the mechanical systems, HVAC, plumbing, energy consulting. That's the $1.8 million contract. But they also need subcontractors for framing, finishing, electrical work. Your company qualifies. About $520,000 in potential revenue over 18 months. My father's breathing was shallow. I could recommend someone else, Sully said. There are plenty of contractors in Connecticut. My mother looked like she might be sick. But if I recommend you, Sully continued, it's not a favor, it's business. You'd have to earn it, deliver quality work, treat my crew with respect. My father nodded quickly. Of course, absolutely. That's not the condition. My father's eyes snapped up. What is? Sully looked at me, then back at my father. Prove you've changed. Not to me. To Ellie. I blinked, surprised. Apologize to her, Sully said. Publicly, not just in this room. Undo the damage you did in front of your family. Show Andrew, Nathan, your mother, show all of them that you were wrong and that you're different now. My father's voice was barely a whisper. And if I do that? Then we'll talk about Grandview. My father looked at me, not for permission, but with something that looked like hope. I said nothing. This was his choice. Okay, my father said finally. I'll do it. Not today, Sully said. Not tomorrow. When you're ready. When it's real. He pulled out one more document from the folder. His business card with a handwritten note on the back. Integrity matters. J.S. And below it, the timeline. Grandview decision needed by January 15th, 2026. Sully left the paper on the table. Then he stood, picked up his folder, and walked toward the door. I followed. Outside, we sat in Sully's truck. The windows fogged in the December cold. Neither of us started the engine. You gave him a chance, I said. I gave him a choice, Sully corrected. What he does with it tells me everything. What if he doesn't change? Sully looked at me. His eyes were clear, certain. Then we know, and we move forward without them. I kissed him, and I realized I'd already chosen. The week between Christmas and New Year's was quiet. My father didn't call. My mother sent one text. He's processing. Give him time. This is hard for him. But good. Mom, Sully, and I spent New Year's Eve at his apartment in Bridgeport. A modest two-bedroom, homemade dinner, quiet, simple. He didn't mention Grandview. I didn't ask. On January 10th, 2026, my father called. Ellie, I'm hosting a family dinner, not a holiday, just a family meeting. Can you and James come? What's this about, Dad? I need to say some things to everyone. We arrived at 6 p.m. Andrew and Jessica were already there. Nathan, too. Grandmother Vivian sat in her usual chair. My father stood at the head of the table. In his hands was a piece of paper. His hands were shaking. I want to start by apologizing to Ellie, he said, his voice unsteady. And to James. Andrew and Nathan exchanged glances. They didn't know the full story. My father read from the paper. At Thanksgiving, I judged James for his job. I was wrong. I was cruel. And I taught my family to value the wrong things. He looked up. James is a good man, better than I gave him credit for. And Ellie, you were right to stand by him. His voice cracked. I'm sorry I made you choose. He folded the paper. Andrew looked uncomfortable. Nathan stared at his plate. Grandmother Vivian spoke first. Lawrence, that took courage. My father nodded. Then he listed the changes he was making. I've hired 2 apprentices from the trade school. Kyle and Jasmine. They start on the 20th. I'm paying them $19 an hour, above minimum wage, because skilled work deserves fair pay. He pulled out his phone. I deleted the Facebook post I made after Thanksgiving, and I wrote this. He turned the screen toward us. I recently learned a valuable lesson about respect and assumptions. Grateful for the people who hold me accountable, never too old to grow. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said. I'm just showing you I heard you. Sully didn't smile, but he nodded. It was a start. In early February, Grandmother Vivian asked Sully to meet for coffee. They met at a small cafe in Fairfield. She was 81 years old and she was learning. James, I've started volunteering with the Connecticut Trades Foundation, she said. They provide scholarships for young people entering trade schools. I'd like you to speak at their March event, if you're willing. Sully agreed. I was wrong about what makes a life valuable, she said quietly. I want to help fix that. For other kids. On February 15th, Sully called my father. I talked to David Chen. You're in. Grandview approved your company for subcontracting. The contract starts March 1st. There was silence on the line. Then my father's voice breaking. Thank you, James. Don't thank me, Sully said. Earn it. This is business. You deliver quality, we work together again. You don't, this is the last time. I understand. My father kept his word. In March, I visited the Stamford construction site. My father and Sully stood side by side in hard hats, reviewing blueprints. My father deferred to Sully on technical decisions. He learned the names of Sully's crew, brought them coffee. At lunch, my father asked, So, about bleeding radiators, can you show me how? Sully smiled. A real one. Yeah, I can do that. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. In April, Sully hosted his company's annual barbecue. He invited my family. My father, mother, and grandmother Vivian attended. My father met Sully's crew, 8 plumbers and HVAC technicians, 3 apprentices, 2 project managers, 1 office administrator, all different ages, backgrounds, stories. My father listened. He met Miguel, the lead plumber. How long have you worked for James? 6 years. Best boss I've ever had. Treats us like family. My father saw what he'd almost dismissed. A whole community. If someone in your life has genuinely changed and earned back your trust, tell me about it. Those stories matter. May 2026. It was a Saturday morning. I was at Sully's apartment, coffee in hand. Sunlight streaming through the kitchen window. Sully set down his mug. I love you. Will you marry me? No grand gesture, no orchestrated moment, Just honesty. He pulled out a simple gold band with a small diamond, his grandmother's ring. I said yes. We told my family that afternoon. My father cried, happy tears, the first time I'd ever seen them. My mother hugged Sully for a long time. Welcome to the family. Really? Grandmother Vivian gave her blessing with a kiss on Sully's cheek. Andrew and Nathan congratulated us. Sincere. Warm. We celebrated with pizza. At my parents' house. Around the same dining room table from Thanksgiving. But the energy was different. Same house, different family. I thought about that a lot in the weeks that followed. Sully hadn't needed to prove anything. He already knew his worth. The test wasn't for him. It was for us, and we almost failed. But he gave my family a gift, the chance to see their own blind spots, to grow, to change. Not everyone would have done that. I learned something too. It's easy to respect people who look successful. Expensive suits, fancy titles, impressive degrees. It's harder to respect people you think are beneath you. That's the real test. And most people don't even know they're taking it. Sully knew. He'd been testing people his whole life. Not because he was cruel, because he was careful. He'd learned early that how people treat you when they think you can't help them tells you everything you need to know. 2 weeks. That's all it took to flip everything. 2 weeks between Thanksgiving and the letter. 2 weeks for my family to confront what they'd become. 2 weeks to decide who they wanted to be. By June, family dinners had become a monthly tradition. Casual, easy, no performance. Sully and my father talked shop about the Grandview project, which was going well. Grandmother Vivian asked Sully about the trade school speaking event. Andrew asked for Sully's advice on a rental property investment. He needed a mechanical inspection. Nathan asked about HVAC systems. His hospital was renovating. Everyone listened when Sully spoke, not because he demanded it, because he'd earned it. One evening in late June, we all sat in my parents' backyard. Warm air, the grill going, kids running around. My father and Sully stood by the grill, talking about ductwork specifications. My mother and grandmother Vivian laughed at something Jessica said. Andrew tossed a football with Nathan. And I sat on the porch steps, watching. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Not a hierarchy, not a competition. Just people, seeing each other, respecting each other. Sully sat down beside me, put his arm around my shoulders. You okay? He asked. Yeah. I leaned into him. I'm really okay. He kissed the top of my head, and in that moment, I understood what he'd been trying to show my family all along. Respect isn't about job titles. It's not about salaries or degrees or who went to which school. It's about recognizing dignity in everyone, even when, especially when, they can't do anything for you. My name is Eleanor Hastings. I'm 28 years old, and I'm marrying a plumber, the best man I know. My family finally sees that, but it took them almost losing me to learn it. If this story made you think about someone you judged too quickly, or someone who saw your worth when others didn't, leave a comment. I read everyone. And if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Sometimes the people we underestimate are exactly the ones we need most.